Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry.
Welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Today we will have part 2 of 2, finishing up our conversation from last week. Hope you enjoy.
And then the other part is, as we've discussed off air, and I guess we'll go on and tell to the potential customers here as well. The other part to me is really doing it as a more boutique service, purposefully limiting the number of people that we're willing to onboard at one time. Because the systems, as again, back to our discussion about, what is marketing, what is sales, and where do they start and stop? For me, marketing really is a strategy. It's a system. It is, how do we want this customer's journey to look and flow from the time that they begin to become interested in a solution to their problem. It may specifically be your product, or they may just be looking. How do we get in front of them? How do we tell a story? How do we eventually capture their lead? And then how do we work that from a sales perspective, right? We want to help strategize that entire system, make sure that everything in it is working really well, and that it matches up with your company, your values, the goals that you have. If your goal is to have, X percent growth, right? Then that system needs to be built for volume, right? If you want to grow by 20% a year, then your strategy does not need to be, sort of like we were saying earlier, more lots and teardrop flags. Now you can get there by doing that. There's no doubt, right? But, if you want 20% revenue growth, then you can get there. If you want, 20% net growth, right, then you're going to have to manage to do it on a scalable level that doesn't include, $150 or $200 or $250,000 worth of inventory going out for every lot, right? So my whole point is, we want to be able to strategize with companies, create really, really smart marketing systems that match up with their goals, their values, where they want to be, where they're headed. And, frankly, to do that, we need to limit the number of those systems that we're building at one time. That's just the truth of it. And so having what we would think of as a more boutique service, and doing that a little slower, and with hyper intention, hyper focus, and making sure that those systems are fantastic. And that, because the other dynamic here is, save for, I suppose, the kind of deep South, right along the Gulf Coast, or over in West Texas or whatever else. But for the most part, a lot of companies want to be doing some of these build outs over the slow season here, right? From that October through February, March, type of a season, so that then you're launching into that kind of new sales year. And to do that really well, we just need to have high intention, and then those systems need to work the day that they roll out. There does not need to be, extended periods of fixing and everything else. Right. So, anyway, I think that the combination of, kind of doing away with the white labeling, bringing that customer experience in house, really being intentional about being a boutique service, and only onboarding X number of customers per quarter or per 6 months, or as we get into it, I think we'll kind of feel out what exactly that limit is for each of our partners. And then on the partner side, really and truly having niche expertise in every one of these services. To me, those three things really are what define or what are going to define Shed Geek marketing going forward, and why we think that we can do such a great job, for the customer.
There's so many directions you could take this episode in, and we've got like a HubSpot annual report pulled up, the 2025 state of marketing report, just some general overviews, or whatever that it talks about. Which age groups are marketers targeting in 2025? You can just assume that that's going to like pretty much lend credibility to 2026 closely as well. Gen Z, let's see, the baby boomers being the smallest targeted marketing. Gen X, technically I'm right on the cusp of that generation. But then millennials the highest, and Gen Z the second highest. Short form video and visual storytelling dominate. There's just something about video. Again, just a plug to my guys over here at LiveSwitch. That's why they exist. Liveswitch.com. Tell them Shed Geek sent you. If you decide to sign up with their services, we get a little something. Yeah, it's we're not trying to like break the bank open. We're trying to help people because I think it's a phenomenal service. I think it's going to be helpful the way that sales are starting to trend. And when you think about like that company I talked about that brought on 500,000 in sales and online, they were really surprised because that was beating a lot of their dealers, especially, if they have like, I think it's like 26 dealers or so, imagine they're probably in that top 10 for sure in year one, right off the bat. And they're sitting here going, wait a minute, this is with no inventory whatsoever, which look, this is, like I said, we could go one of a couple directions, I've said this before several times, and shout out to Tough Shed, to my knowledge, the largest shed manufacturer in the country, and do this on a display model. Like we've talked about doing that here, Cord, just to kind of see how that goes, not because we're in a high traffic area where it's going to generate a whole bunch of success, but just like not selling off an inventory model. Bringing people in, actually having the customer, experience, increasing the customer acquisition time, decreasing some of like the standard way of impulsive decision making that happens a lot of times in buying a shed. I just want to get one out the door, want to help the customer long term, and probably part of doing that's coming in, making sure to get them the right colors, make sure to get the right structure, make sure to get it right, all the bells and whistles that they want, and things like that. And maybe that increases that customer acquisition time to an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it is across the industry. But, Tough Shed does this, and it's amazing. They bring people in. Now, of course, they go build them. They don't do much prefab from what I'm aware of, or at least have knowledge of, but they do a phenomenal job, and they've done really well in the shed space. And I'm like, is that the future, or is it more inventory? I do believe in super lots, but I believe that super lot's going to have to be 200-300 buildings to move the needle. I don't know that a super lot's 40 buildings anymore, or 60 buildings even. I think you're going to have so much there that people are going to drive from 50, 100 miles away to be like, okay, well, there's plenty to choose from here. I can surely find one I like. It's a big enough organization. They can get it delivered within 4 or 5 days. But if you're 8 to 10 business days on an inventory piece and you're 3 to 4 weeks on a new building, I tend to think that people are going to choose a new building, get everything that they want. It's brand new out the door. So like, again, we can take this marketing concept and conversation in a lot of different directions, but
a lot of those business models are going to work, Shannon, right? Like, Walmart may have, put a lot of like small hometown grocers, out of business, right? But they're still there. And in fact, some people would maybe argue that as Dollar General now starts to add, produce back, starts to add fresh meats back, right? Like, now is like Dollar General filling part of that niche, right? Walmart may have put all of the independent, or many, not all, many of the independent small town grocers out of business. I mean, personally, here in Metropolis, we still have a independent small town grocer, Big John's.
Mhm.
You know, they did not put Kroger or Aldi or Food Line, right? Like everybody actually really likes those like mid-size, right? Like bigger than what you would think of as a like a hometown grocer, right? But not
Mhm.
so overwhelming that now people don't enjoy the experience of going to Walmart any longer, right? And I'm just using this generic example because the fact is like multiple business models are going to win, but you better know which one you're in, right? Because if you are Big John's, if you're a local hometown grocer and like you are trying to market and run an app, as if you are Walmart, and like you have all these tertiary expenses as if you are selling, furniture, and you have all these other products with margins and whatever, right? I mean, my point is like there's not a single direction that is going to just all out and out win or lose. But like
Mhm.
depending on what business model you're in, you better know which one of those avenues you want to participate in. I mean, I think that we, here at Shed Geek certainly believe like for independent dealers, gosh, you had better be diversifying, and if you're dealing with a manufacturer, a shed manufacturer, or a manufacturer of any kind that still has an opinion that your independently owned, operated, and run shed lot should not have anything other than sheds on them, then like I hate to be like this, because the manufacturer probably don't want to hear this. But like you need to find somebody who will, because like that's the path for that business model, right? And so same with inventory versus custom. There's going to be some of both. Not everybody can be Bucky's, right? Bucky's won't fit at every exit. Bucky's won't fit in
Mhm.
every town, but that doesn't mean that you better not really and truly understand, where your strengths are and what your strategy is, and make sure that your systems, to our point, right, when you're designing or updating or upgrading your marketing systems, you had better know, who your customer is, what kind of offer you're going to them with, and have a strategy to both collect that lead and to close that sale.
Think about what we've been hearing even here in quarter four. Different manufacturers that we talk to, talking about how sales are down. And there's going to be somebody listening, Cord, that's going to be like, what are you talking about? Quarter four in 2025 was my best ever. And like, which direction do you go with that? And it's like, yeah, because the person who's saying it was my worst quarter ever, you were probably taking some of their market share. Maybe you did that through some of your digital, tools in your toolbox, or maybe you're just in an area ripe for opportunity for the next couple of years in terms of shed sales. Maybe you're in a growing area that's just constantly in need of storage.
Oh no!
Sam, what's going on? Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine, Lisa. I was just trying to get a screwdriver and all this other stuff fell down. I'm ready to go buy a shed so we can have some space in this garage again.
I agree. I keep looking at the shed Mr. Jenkins bought. Let's ask him where I got his.
Howdy, neighbor. We're wondering, how do you like your shed?
I love it. It's exactly what I needed, and I couldn't have asked for a better service.
And where did you get it?
I can't remember, but let me check. Something this nice will probably have the builder's name on it somewhere. No, I'm sorry. I can't find a name anywhere.
Well, we finally got a shed.
Yes, I just hope we're happy. The thing is a lot more shoddy than I expected, And I'm sure I told them I wanted a window, but they didn't have it in the paperwork, so I couldn't argue. Boy, is this a lousy shed. We haven't even had it 2 years, have we?
Barely. It was just a bad deal all the way around. Mr. Jenkins told me the other day that he likes his shed so much he wants to get a second one, but he still can't remember where he got it.
Your product is your best advertising. At Identigrow, we provide nameplates that ensure your quality products are never forgotten. Identify your products, grow your business. For more information, visit identigrow.com.
Or give them a call at 540-283-9193.
You know, we're talking about just doing like a smaller lot here local, and simply for the reason of like staying in the game. We've been out of it almost too long, right? In terms of like sales to just get in the game. But it's like, hey, let's just do a couple of small things to diversify. Let's just do, sell off of a display model, right? Get rid of that display model at the end of the year, bring in something new, just put enough out there to kind of show people, what can be done, but then do a lot of the work online, do a lot of the work through video. Maybe that's live switch, maybe do a lot of it through Zoom, maybe do a lot of that through a 3D configurator, being able to like show them the features and benefits of what they're getting. But maybe it's like offering some of these, trailers, from our buddies down in Eagleville, maybe that's offering a carport, just diversifying, to your point, just add a couple of things to help pay the lot rent or whatever. And like, it's a small town. I don't feel like even in a 50-mile radius, we're going to be a huge dealer. I competed in sales a couple of times, here, even locally, even got first place a couple of times against some pretty large territories. So like really put the work in and got it done. But it's like, what's the long-term look like? It's just helping people. It's helping people get storage. It's helping people solve problems. And if you're an independent, dealer, yeah, I mean, like you have to think about that. And if you're a manufacturer, if you're not putting that in, you're not front loading that into your agreement where you're saying, we're going to bring you these free buildings, but you can only sell these things. It's kind of hard to tell an independent manufacturer not to pay the bills, and like, especially if they're taking on all their lead gen and website and all these different things. And you know what? Some of them may like the benefit of staying independent, because then they can switch vendors. And like, it's just, it becomes very, it becomes a lot, right? Like you really have to understand the industry well, I think, to understand how to market even the products in the industry.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're not, again, it's what's the strategy? If you're an independent dealer who is not diversifying, who is not trying to build the profile, right, the business profile, in your customers' minds, in those local consumers' minds, as the solution for whatever those kind of backyard outdoor, whether it be utility storage, kind of those backyard solutions, outdoor solutions, storage solutions at your home property, whatever it might be. Like if you're not trying to be that, if you are just selling any one of those products individually, then like you better have a really good, lead gen process to make sure that you are scooping up every single, digital lead for a shed within your radius, right? If it's available, you better be getting it, because that's, that if that's your strategy, then you need to have a component that says I'm all in on sheds, right? Because if you're all in on sheds, and being all in on sheds just means that you have a lot, right? And that you don't have those marketing systems that are kind of surrounding it and bolstering it and everything else, then like there are other business models that are going to outplay you in that, right? And it may not get to you. To your point, Shannon, you may be in an area that just has a couple years of good, strong development and growth ahead of it, and it may not get to you for some amount of time, and that's perfectly fine too, right? Like do it for a couple years and get out or whatever. But it's just about being intentional and knowing what space you want to occupy in your consumer's mind, and making sure that you're then intentionally building marketing systems around that.
I think this is why we've kind of got into that consulting space a little bit more. We've been like, we want to give away as much value as we can on the podcast for free. The old Zig Ziglar, help others get what they want so you can get what you want. Hopefully through that advice, you can see that there's like a systematic approach or some leveraging of information, knowledge, and experience here that we can use to benefit someone. That's why the consultation, I'm happy to say, we've got Tyler Mahan on board. A lot of you guys know Tyler, from Better Barnes out in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. He wrote in the SBJ for years and has ran a successful business for, 20 years being involved in that. Peter Miller, the guys down in Florida, and what they've done with the Shed Sales Summit and being able to create an actual experience that like focuses on the hunger of solving education in the sales, shed sales specific arena. Richard Mashburn, gosh, like a man that needs no introduction, and just like the value. And here we are, we've got a couple of consulting clients already through just kind of quiet lead generation. But then the other people that we're adding to that process to be able to look at your P&Ls, like through a business perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at your marketing agents, or your marketing numbers and take a look at what your cost per click, and your cost per lead and cost per acquisition are. Being able to get into the details. I mean, your company, even Growth Ops, you and Shalisha. I mean, Shalisha, gosh, we got to get her on the podcast, Cord. She's just brilliant, in terms of business and was even her husband's like a franchise consultant, and she's ran, franchise consultants or franchising agencies for years. I think at one point over, I don't remember what she said, like
you had 82 H&R blocks.
H&R blocks. Yeah.
On the company side, then she worked on, they owned their own H&R block. So she was on both sides of that franchisor relationship. Her husband is now a franchise consultant, which means that he places, matches people to potential, franchise businesses, and then obviously she and I do Growth Ops, where we then offer the fractional executive services, so
these are value props that I think we can, like, even beyond marketing. It's like, it's not just really marketing anymore. It's like people are looking for help in a multitude of areas, like a multitude of information. And what we're doing is just trying to pull on our resources to say, hey, we just want a little bit, like that's what keeps the podcast going, is that advertising. And it allows us to have fun. I mean, to visit you guys and to hear your stories. And there's nothing I love more than a dealer telling me their story. There's also nothing I love more than hearing somebody come on and talk about their product and their service and want to talk about how it benefits the industry. I mean, that's free. Come on, talk about it. Is there a way we can partner more? That's great. But I'm excited about some of the other conversations we're having right now with consultation. We're going to probably build that out a little bit farther. And some of that includes consulting you in a marketing capacity. And like, if we're not the right fit, like, it's just easy to tell you that.
Unlock the power of productivity with Cardinal Leasing. Are you looking to elevate your business operations with top-tier equipment? Look no further than Cardinal Leasing. We offer a wide range of reliable and high-quality equipment tailored to meet your unique needs. Flexible leasing options. Whether you need short-term rentals or long-term solutions, our customizable leasing plans are designed to provide maximum flexibility and affordability. Conventional financing available. Cardinal Leasing also offers great conventional finance options for those of you that prefer that over-lease purchase options. Expert support. Our team of experienced professionals is here to guide you every step of the way, ensuring a seamless leasing experience. Boost efficiency. With our top-of-the-line equipment, you can enhance productivity, reduce downtime, and achieve your business goals faster. Why choose Cardinal Leasing? Competitive rates, exceptional customer service, hassle-free process, quick and easy approvals. Don't let outdated equipment hold you back. Partner with Cardinal Leasing today and take your business to the next level. Contact us now. Visit our website at equipment.cardinalleasing.us or call us at 618-803-4086 to get started.
We're actually bringing on, our first client for consulting, who will then have specialized. This particular client will then have like specialized lead funnel design, type of consultative service, and just so the listeners kind of understand what that will look like, is we went out and found, a person who we feel great about, is very kind of niche down, right? Has a lot of experience in this particular kind of marketing discipline, right? Lead funnel design. Similar to kind of what I was saying about, do you add a little giveaway piece of value, PDF, in the middle of your lead funnel there, stuff like that. And so like we are making that connection, should be starting here next week, right? So that is, an hour a week that the customer, the client will have with the consultant, right? Where they are basically mapping, planning, creating that strategy, and then once a month, or sometimes twice a month, depending on scheduling, then you and I, either both of us or one of us, are then jumping in from like Shed Geek headquarters onto those weekly calls to make sure that all the bases are covered, all resources needed, right? If there's a different discipline, of advice that is needed, if there's a connection that needs to be made, if there's any way that we can kind of add to that knowledge, add to those resources, add to those connections, we're then getting on to make sure that sort of free flow of information is happening. And, effectively, this is allowing the customer to get a really great idea of how they want their marketing systems to be designed, what the strategy is, kind of laying all that out before then taking that next step into, okay, now let's venture into who is the right partner to then build, this, whatever that system we're talking about might be, right? Obviously CRM, we love Joe, we love Velocity, right? Like, so easy shout out there, but whatever system they're looking at improving, right? They kind of have that very personal, deep knowledge base to just talk through, plan and strategize.
And in some cases, Cord, in some cases, it's a pay to play. I hate to use that terminology, but some of those, especially in some of the SEO performances that we're looking at, it's stacked for the benefit of the person who's actually wanting to create, good SEO so that they can decrease their ad budget and increase their organic traffic. That's a step up. It's going to be measurable in terms of like, hey, this is where you start. And if you don't get results, you don't see a bill. And I think that's really important, especially after, our previous experience is like controlling the purse as well too. So that it's like, hey, if you're not seeing the results, here's your refund. Like if I don't control that funding, then I don't have the ability to make that right. And like this, we have complete control of that situation moving forward. So it's just like moving forward in a very slow, organized and cautious approach to make sure that you actually deliver results. I think that's what people in this industry want at the end of the day. It's like, hey, if it's working, I'll keep doing it. If it's not, I won't. And I'm like, well, that seems very reasonable. Same approach I take. I'm going to address this real quick just because I have this pulled up and it'll get me through this. I don't know how long we've gone on this podcast now. I didn't write the time down when we began and was just kind of curious at how it would go. But top content formats for delivering ROI in 2025. I thought this was very interesting. Certainly goes along with my newest SBJ article. Certainly goes along with my buddies over at LiveSwitch. Short form video. That's not what they do. LiveSwitch. That's not what they do. They connect you with the customer via a live switch, literally. right? But short form video content, images, live stream videos, podcast audio content, and user generated content. I thought that was a very interesting approach. That like of all the senses cord, the visual, sure seems to win out in 2025, and I think it will in 2026. People being able to see what it is that they want to purchase through your content, through your messaging. That short form video content is certainly grabbing, and it's pulling on the unfortunate like rewiring of our minds through social media to be able to engage in content at these 60-second intervals where we're just not entertained by, we're probably an hour in, and it's like people are really dedicated who are listening to an hour of conversation. I used to listen to talk radio for 4 or 5 hours at a time every day. So like, it's no big deal for me to just listen to that. And I pick up on information through that, just kind of subconsciously. But short form video content certainly is a way to target, those millennials.
It needs to be vertical. I mean, I'm not sure which article you're looking at there, but like, it doesn't say that explicitly, but that's implicit because the vertical, it's not just about, so yes, the short formness of it, right? The idea that things just need to be in that, 20 to 60 second range for the sake of people's attention spans. But the other part is that all of the vertical formats, whether that is Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, right? All of the vertical formats have now moved to what is called an interest-based algorithm, right? So instead of being a social based algorithm, which is effectively that, you have told Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube what you like based on your subscribers, based on what you have declared to Facebook are your interests, right? We were talking this morning. One of my declared interests on Facebook is the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll tell you what, I have no interest in watching the last 2 or 3 years whenever it has been a struggle for the Cardinals to score runs and, and find a pitching staff that is like regularly competent, right? Like I'll tell you what, I have not been super interested in a lot of Cardinals content because frankly, it puts me in a bad mood because I remember, how great it was growing up with, Pujols and Molina, and whatever. Right. But my point is instead of kind of believing people when they say, well, these are the people I like, these are my interests, these are the groups that I am, these are the groups that I'm in, right? What that interest-based algorithm does is it says, no, we're going to tell you what you're interested in because we're better at putting things in front of you that you like than you are at telling people what you like. I mean, these are some deep psychological, kind of, tendencies here, right? And so my point is, if you're not doing vertical, do vertical. Talk to your customers. If you have any kind of national presence or national aspirations, I mean, that is what this type of, obviously it can spread amongst your community. It can spread in your local area. But like if you are a company that is regional or has any kind of a national presence, like you should be leading with vertical video because all it takes is one of those things to just catch, they don't publicly disclose 100% what all of the little time stamps are, right? Whether or not it is that under 1 second, right, is a big one that is kind of known, right? If people are scrolling within 1 second of your video hitting, that's not good, right? If people are watching multiple times, I'm sure for anyone who is on Facebook or, regularly watches those vertical videos, you'll notice that they've started to build them where they're a loop, where it almost shows you the ending first and then goes back. Like that's an attention strategy, right? The strategy is to get you to actually allow that video to loop through and watch an extra 3 seconds of it the second time it plays through.
You've seen all these. You've seen these guys that are like go tumbling down a hill, and the next thing you know, it cuts over to you tumbling into your shed or your car or whatever you're selling. Right. And the whole idea is to like get you to pay attention longer. It buys you a couple more seconds to attempt to try to sell something to you in a generation where so many videos are being put out, short reels and things like that are being put out. What captures your attention? What lives in your algorithm? To your point, like what makes you think it's not? And whenever people say, well, this is like witchcraft or whatever, this isn't a whole lot different than you walking into a library, in my opinion, and the librarian saying, just got some new books in on, whatever popular magazine, Popular Mechanics or something, because they know that you enjoy reading about, muscle cars or something. So they're like, by the way, the librarian says, just got a new magazine in, you may want to take a look. This is just a digital apparatus that's saying, hey, we know that you like to watch videos over tractor pulls. So here's some more tractor pull videos. So if you begin to look into the storage space, if you're a customer, whether it's through disruptive marketing or whether it's through intentional search, like an actual Google prompt using specific keywords, it's still going to show back up into your algorithm. That's happening with YouTube. It's happening with Google, right? These are the two biggest search engines in general anyway. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Cord, or maybe I did, but if you wanted to finish your thought there, it just made me think of that in the moment.
No, not at all. No, I think that's, I was trying to, I quickly was searching because I didn't want to misquote, but, famous, Arthur Clarke, right, is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and like in a lot of ways, the speed at which, targeting and retargeting can happen now, feels to us because it has gotten to that point. But again, I just think that, this for me, it just hammers home the idea that, not that everything has to change, not that different business models, right, are not going to be able to survive. And there's, I think here at Shed Geek, we've seen success out of particular business models when it comes to independent dealers. We've seen success out of particular business models when it comes to, your regional, or large local, however you want to think about that, manufacturers. Those manufacturers, 3 to 4 or 5 locations, right? We've seen different business models work for them. We've seen different business models work for those large manufacturers that have multiple manufacturing facilities, and not only a dealer network, but then a network of reps that are going out and adding new dealers, and so I think that we kind of have our preferences in each kind of category that we feel work, and it's not that we prefer them because whatever we have some irrational love for a certain business model than the other. It's because we've seen people succeed, which is what we want to encourage and what we want to help with. And so we may have our preferences in each category as far as how those things go, but this isn't to say that there's one model to rule them all, right? A little Lord of the Rings.
You can fall into that trap. You fall into that trap, and I begin to think about something that me and you've talked about whenever me and you argue about politics or popular culture or whatever it is, right? Whenever we're just having that conversation, and I've truth is truth, right? Like it's one source of truth, but like I've heard you say several times, and I agree, two things can be true at the same time. Now, that's not negating away from like absolute truth to be like, well, this is my truth and that's your truth. No, it's saying two things can be true at the same time, meaning two business models can work really well. And that's the comparison I'm trying to draw. It doesn't mean, I think there's this trap you can fall into to say, well, it has to be vertically integrated into this one singular experience. And it doesn't have to be in business. Everyone picks something that they prefer and they run with that. And you know what? That's why mergers and acquisitions happen. That's why I think they're going to continue to happen in 2026, is because we are seeing companies that are saying like, we tried this route and we feel like we're kind of at the end of that success bubble and it's ready to try something different and like move that experience over to somewhere else. That's why we've seen even some large manufacturers sell out to private equity groups or whatever that situation is, that enters into the space. But yeah, I agree with you completely. I think there's, sometimes there's multiple avenues to work. So that's why whenever one person's saying, do it this way, this is what was my success. Well, it doesn't mean it's going to be that exact thing in their area, but it doesn't mean that you can't take away from some of the successful things that they've endeavored, and you could pull on those resources. That's why I believe in going to things like the Shed Sales, Summit. That's why I believe in going to like Shed Week. It's enjoyable to be there, to be knowledgeable about the thing that I'm earning my living off of. So it just behooves me to engage into the industry. And part of that is following podcasts, reading books, following certain people on social media who I feel like are just leading in certain spaces, whether through their content creation or through their websites or through their, whatever media that they're using to get it out there. I think we're almost pulling back a little bit over here. It's 5 years in and we're like, are we a media company completely? No. We work in the industry. I have since the podcast launched. I was an RTO rep, whenever I launched it. And part of the people would say, I don't think they realize that part of that thought was you're knocking on doors. You're knocking on doors in a highly competitive market. And if I realized nothing immediately, it was that people want a relationship in this industry. I ask people this all the time. You've heard me ask some of the brightest and best in this industry, what wins RTO business today? Because I see it as being so competitive. Like, what wins? I'm always interested in the thoughts that I get back from people, of like what they think wins business. Because I remember what it was like to just be like a hardworking guy out here beating the road and just trying to offer up a good value proposition that was like competitive. And relationship was definitely one of those things. And I heard so many people say, I need more resources, more information. And it's like, oh man, we can do that. Let's just interview folks. Like, who knew that it would come with all the rest of this stuff, right? Good and bad that came with it, but we pursued it, prayed about it, followed God and said, hey, as long, I've said this chord since day one, I'll say it again. The minute God says, I want you to be done with that, I'll be done. Because obedience is greater than sacrifice. But, I think we've been able to provide a lot of cool opportunity through conversations. I've met some of my best friends in this industry by just having conversations. So I believe that it's very important to have those things. I know I just went on a little bit of a whatever there, a rabbit trail, but I'm thinking about like the future of the industry and even the future of like media and like communications and like even our own. It's one thing to educate people on these things. It's another thing to actually experience them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of behind the scenes that you don't get to be privy to that I wish you could, but for the sake of staying out of court, I digress. I don't invite it.
Hello, Shed Builders. I'd like to grab your attention for just a moment. As we look ahead, one thing is clear. Customers will have higher expectations than ever before. Shed consumers have an unprecedented access to information. To stay competitive, you need to create sheds that are not only high in quality, but also rich in innovation. You might recall my friend Dan Ream, one of my early podcast guests, who introduced Solar Blaster fans, specifically the Solar Roof Blaster. Dan has been busy handling orders, and he's eager to speak directly to shed builders about his groundbreaking products. What stands out to me about Dan's products designed specifically for sheds, like the Solar Roof Blaster and the Solar Light Blaster, is how they enhance the shed owner's experience. With the focus on quality, it's time to start thinking about adding features and benefits for the end user. Here at Shed Geek, we wholeheartedly recommend Solar Blaster as the solution. My favorite thing about the entire line of products? The support you'll receive from Dan. Not only is he incredibly knowledgeable about these products, but he's also one of the most customer-focused individuals I know. He truly stands behind both his product and his service. We're searching for companies ready to elevate customer satisfaction to the next level. To learn more, just visit solarblasterfans.com and fill out some basic information for a callback, or connect directly at 480-747-7097. You can also check out the Shed Geek newsletter, where a click on the Solar Blaster ad will guide you to a form for more information and some cool videos showcasing the products. Let's power up innovation and elevate customer experiences together.
Pet peeves in marketing. I know there's no telling where we're at, and if we end up having to cut some of this, we'll just cut it. But what are some pet peeves that you see, Cord, in marketing? What are some things that you wish would change, maybe specific to the shed industry when I say pet peeves?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is not trying to segment, and this is true across all industries, right? Is it seems like people don't try to segment their both their messaging, their value prop, and then the actual lead funnel itself, right? So, which would be, what are you saying to people? Like in that, the reason you call it funnel is because a lot of times it is like a vertically laid out thing, right? Whether that's an actual web page, a landing page, a page that's been created through, through a CRM, right? That serves as a landing page, but then has a higher function of reporting. Maybe it's as simple as a lead form itself, right? Which, is usually experienced vertically as well, because you're asking questions, that kind of go from top to bottom. But, I think the biggest thing for me is, most companies in general kind of seem to treat all their customers as much the same. Whenever, as we well know, we could lay out half a dozen, just broad categories for why people are getting, a backyard shed, right? A backyard portable building, right? Storage, I think, was the original kind of thing, but gosh, that has grown. It becomes a hobby space. It becomes a ADU, right? Is now the technical description, as a partial dwelling, right? Where you're a book nook, a she shed, right? A man cave,
granny
right?
pod, a dotty house. My buddy Del Vici over there.
Yeah, no, those at least insinuate that they're actually like sleeping and living in them, right? So even that's a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah.
But then you have true house, where it's actually not just a partial dwelling unit where you're like living but not necessarily sleeping per se. Doesn't necessarily need full electricity and plumbing. Anyway, I mean, we're just going down rabbit holes, but like there's half a dozen big category uses, and then there are then branches off of each of those that go in different directions. So I think, to me, probably my biggest pet peeve overall is not having those diversified kind of lead pathways. So you make sure that you're speaking to each one of those problems and solutions, and why your value prop is the right one for the customer. I think a lot of times we just throw people to a homepage, right? And then we're like, well, navigate for yourself, right? Where I would advocate for a much more custom journey, for that customer. So that's probably my overall pet peeve. But I mean, the fact about that is, like, it takes money, right? So if you're going to have a dozen or half a dozen, lead pathways for your customer, then you're going to have to build them all out. You're going to have to think through, what are the sort of mid funnel activities? Are you doing that PDF, right? Are you pushing someone to 3D Builder? Are you embedding oh my goodness, Real Work? Are you embedding a Real Work Labs map, inside of that, even on that lead funnel page, separately from your home page or whatever else, right? So, I mean, that's why, I mean, I understand that in a lot of ways, if budget is the sort of, the hampering factor there. And even from a personal perspective, I don't have as many lead funnels for my wife's, event and events business as I would like, because just in a lot of ways, like doing it the way I would want it done is going to require those professional graphics and right.
Mhm.
And so, like, there's just a budgetary constraint there. But I guess my pet peeve would be people who constrain themselves not because of budget, right? Like we know plenty of companies that could certainly tackle this sort of all encompassing, realm, all encompassing customer pathway type of strategy, who just don't think about it in that way, right? Who just think about it as, well, we've ran pay per click for the last 20 years and we're going to throw people to the homepage. And if they can figure out how to get down the right leg of that homepage to get us a lead, then great. And so
It's made me entertain the idea of selling, abroad. We've talked about this for a long time, but if you can follow the entire workflow, if you can follow the entire funnel from the time that someone gets interested to the time that someone has a shed delivered in their backyard. I mean, it's made me entertain the idea of, like, outside of consulting, is Shed Geek Sales the best, approach moving forward, to say, hey, look, we understand this stuff. And if you're like, I just want to build a shed, but be more than happy to have you sell our sheds for us. Maybe we need to go down that road. We've talked about it for a long time. We bought this church and we've got a whole sanctuary out there that's just waiting to be filled. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's an opportunity. I'm looking at the HubSpot, and we'll wrap up here. I'm looking at the HubSpot map that we've been kind of using to chart our course here, although we haven't stayed on it very good at all this entire episode, which is just par for the course. And it's talking about AI, redefining marketing with AI, no longer a future tool, but a core of today's successful campaigns, from generating multi-model content to optimizing search strategies. Marketers are using AI to scale creativity and efficiency. And it has a breakdown here, talking about top AI applications in marketing in 2025. And how 35% of that is content creation, such as writing or images, 30% data analytics and insights, and 20% workflow automation. And although that 20% is on the low end there, one more, 15% AI-powered research. But it's that workflow automation that gets me, because so much of the conversation that's dominated the space, even here in this conversation today, which is, getting that workflow online to match up with, like, the branding of your company, or what you would want to see whenever you spend all this time to go out, build inventory, open up a dealer location, just on a gut feeling that somebody seems like a pretty decent guy. Like, he seems okay. Let's give him a shot. And I'm like, is that sustainable in business? I know, and, like, look, phenomenal company, and no, they won't be named, but I know, of a company that, opened up a surplus. I don't want to say exactly how many, a surplus of manufacturer or dealer locations this year, and 50% of them got shut down. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, that's wild, because I'm over here like, how much more would investing in the digital landscape, like, how much more would that take, rather than investing in all this inventory and being able to just meet the customer where they are, where customers are shopping today? I think somebody said one time, I was looking at closing down the dealer network, and I'm like, absolutely not. I can't do anything on my own anyway, first of all. But if educating people causes, a movement to shift in some way or whatever, I apologize, but, don't stone me to death. I'm not Socrates over here. We're just trying to, like, have conversations with people and be as educated, and we're trying to get educated ourselves. But I got to tell you, I struggle with the dealer network, the inventory network specifically, reshift their focus, or if they become employees, as long as they're independent contractors, I struggle with the idea that you can't outsell on a display model than you can with inventory. So I think there's a shift between 3 or 4 or 5 displays out there and like 300 or 400 buildings. Maybe it's not 300 or 400, maybe it's 120, 150 or something like that. But I don't know if that, like, 10 to 12, 15 buildings is the billboard that you want. I don't know if that's generating enough value for you as a company. But I digress. I don't own a major company, and I do not have a 3 to 5 or 600 dealer network out there. So come on, educate me. Talk about that conversation and why that is valuable to have. But I'm just struggling with it a little bit. Cord, final thoughts here today.
So I'll circle back to that where that started, which was with the use of AI. So I mean, I think that it's certainly. I mean, like this is not breaking news here. I was actually on the second day that ChatGPT was open to the public. I was a user of ChatGPT, so I've been, that's been 3 years ago now, I suppose, 2.5. And was trying, was evangelizing, right? Just how great this tool was and everything else. So, I've been on this train for a long time. I've watched it develop. I think that, certainly for content creation, especially when it comes to copy and iterations of your primary, value propositions, right? Making sure that wording, particularly, I'm not opposed to some of the content that is the graphic content. So still images has gotten pretty darn good. And I would encourage people to use those tools, especially on still images. A lot of the different models do a good job of that. Video, I think, is still lagging. I recently heard that. Oh gosh, now I'm going to forget which brand it was. Coca-Cola. Somebody just made did an AI generated ad, right? That is estimated took 300,000 prompts to put together a 60-second ad, and about five of no, I mean, they wanted it to be as close to the quality of a traditionally produced ad, right? So they didn't just let the AI keep running away, right? They wanted to control it frame by frame and try to, really, really make it something that looked like it could have been shot in a traditional way. I still think there's a lot to be desired from the video content there. From my perspective, I would say get your camera out, turn it vertically, right, and do your own vertical videos is still a strategy. Other than just one-off little stuff, right? Little, maybe it's an intro or an outro. Maybe it does a good enough job being consistent, on things like that to give you something that is good quality. But yeah, so on the content, I think it from an evaluation and a research perspective, it certainly does a good job. Although in our industry, particularly when it comes to any kind of research on competitors, just sort of because all these companies are privately owned, right? It doesn't give you a really great, it doesn't have a real great understanding of kind of what the dynamics of private industry is, because it doesn't have a lot of that public knowledge, of those things. If you have data sets that are, if you're one of the companies that's doing a great job of collecting data, then it can certainly do some pretty good analyzation, right? Like it can look at it and tell you trends, and you can kind of prompt back and forth, to give you some answers to specific questions that are data driven. So yes, I mean, I've been a proponent of AI. To your point, the workflows, you do need to, similar to on the text generation side, you almost need to have an editor or an overseer to make sure that those workflows are in fact correctly designed, and that they have the correct if what type of triggers built into those workflows. But generally, yeah, I mean, from what I've seen from all the demos that I've done, I mean, I think that using AI tools to create the actual automations in, whether it's HubSpot, or GHL, or whichever one of the CRM type services that you're using, those AI tools seem to be, 95% accurate with all of the very basic functions of how you would want to automate those workflows. So, I'm a big adopter of technology. So I say, adopt it where it makes sense. Be cautious, and always, be willing to serve as that, editor or overseer function. But my goodness, like if the shed industry, can be early, or not early, but, can be somewhat early adopters, of those types of technologies. I think that does nothing but put us ahead, as compared to other kind of big ticket consumer industries. We need to try and be ahead on this, right? Versus lagging behind and other industries kind of, getting ahead of us in that sort of consumer experience type of stuff, the same type of things that we're talking about catching up on, even just through more traditional marketing services, right? So, in any case, I guess maybe that's kind of where I land, as a, what the outlook is for 2026 and how I feel about, 2025 and the progress the industry has made, and, where we want to take our clients, in 2026 and well beyond.
Well, if you have an interest in more information on Shed Geek marketing, feel free to go to our website, fill out a lead form, contact me at info@shedgeek.com. We're happy to do a discovery call, guys, and just have a conversation and walk through what it is that you feel like we need. And I think there's just a desire there to say, can we help or can't we help? What does that look like? I don't want to oversell anything. I think there's a lot of people that still need a website. If they don't need a website, they need an updated website. Maybe they need to figure out how to, do tracking, and set up maybe a Google business profile, or just, whatever it is, Cord, like the most simple of things. Maybe sometimes they just need information about where to go. We're happy to have those conversations. Like, it starts somewhere so that we generate that credibility for you guys to want to work with us, or to say, hey, I just want to be hands off and want you to handle it completely, and if that's what you prefer, we're happy to do that. But I don't think we're coming out with that hard hitting, year and a half that we went through. I think that boutique service explains really well what we're hoping to accomplish, and like limit the capacity at which we're helping. And I believe that good begets good, for anybody who has had an experience in the past that you weren't satisfied with, give us a call. Like we're happy to have that conversation privately. I wish I could have that conversation publicly, but so be it. We're gonna leave it there. I'll digress. I just can't say enough. Thank you for the nearly 5 years that we've already completed here in the industry, just specifically with the podcast. We want to continue to help use it to bolster the information that is happening in the industry for its benefit, so that it grows. We want to be part of that process. We want to build up. We don't want to tear down. Give us a call if you want to do a discovery call. We'll certainly go through the content with you of what it looks like and get you in touch with the right partners, and more than anything, provide results. I think that's what we're focused on in 2026. I think that's the nature of like what we're trying to say here today. So thank you, Shed Industry, for always listening. Any final thoughts, Cord?
Tune in to the whatever we are going to call it, 2025 wrap up, 2026 preview. I think you and I are going to do that ourselves as a dialogue first, but then would also like to, as we get closer to 2026 spring sales season, even do a roundtable, right? So any listeners who would be interested in participating, we kind of have a group that's ready, but yeah, tune in, because I think it's going to be interesting 2026 for the industry, and we're going to be here covering it all.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you guys soon. I'm wishing you nothing but the best in 2026.
Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you and have a blessed day.